Warning. This podcast is about to open the sealed section of spirituality.
Hey you, yeah you, we see you, you divine human being.
And we are calling you to come home.
We are ready to talk about the real shit. We're going to get real about life as a divine human being.
The good, the not so great, spirituality and taboo. Divinely Human is the podcast that's all about what it means to be human in a spiritual context.
We know it's not just about being spiritual, it's about being human too.
And that means changing poopy nappies and channeling angels.
Sometimes even at the same time. It's time for us to stop making other people's noise our own soundtrack of life.
Let's make some waves together so that we can all ride them together and create deep resonance, a sense of home in this crazy world.
Pour yourself a coffee
Or a glass of wine if that's your potion.
and sit down with your new favorite spiritual sisters
As we go on a journey together into what it means to be
a divine human being.
on this spiritual journey. Hello and welcome to the Divinely Human podcast. I am your co-host, Aleisha.
And I am Tanita.
We are really honored to be here today because we have felt, especially the last few weeks or so, that there has been this real importance on protection and protecting our space, protecting the people around us, those around us, from negative energy or just energy in general that is sent to you that I guess doesn't have the best intentions. What we've both found, like in conversation, just speaking, you and I have both kind of noticed that there are a lot of people that maybe are wondering how to start implementing protection into their, daily practices or rituals of their own, and also like what does it even entail. So I feel like today we're just going to see where this conversation goes and just dive into the whole world of energy protection. I feel like this really needs to be spoken about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the deeper I go in my business and the deeper I go with myself, the more I understand that I really do need to be very conscious about protecting both my energy, my space, my family. And it's something that, looking back, like if I knew about this stuff like 5-10 years ago, I would have been a whole different person. And it really has. It's changed my life completely, because what it's done is given me the ability to feel really in control with my own energy. I was always so open to other people's energy, and I noticed that I was always just like felt at the helm of, what other people were feeling, or I just didn't feel in control, and I let my guard down a lot. But then when I started to step into this work and I started to understand, there are so many practices and tools out there that can help me protect my energy, I can actually control that and be who I am, not who I'm influenced by. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think I guess we're told that we kind of can't control what happens. We're kind of told that from the get-go, really, like, whatever happens, happens, You just can't control what's happening. It's okay. You just got to go with it. But I feel like there's a really big misconception there, in that we can actually control the energy that we have around us all the time if we want to, and if we're aware of it. And I agree. I've been in that space where I haven't had my protection around me, and I've just and it doesn't even necessarily have to be, bad intentional energy, but just I've left my field open for anything to come through. And I wondered why I've felt so like icky. And it's really interesting because I suffered from chronic fatigue for 3 years at one stage. And that was right before I had my first spiritual awakening. And I did no energy work. I did no protection work. I didn't even know what that meant, what it entailed, that it was even possible, that it existed, that I had any control over it. And I find that really interesting, that I was suffering from like severe fatigue for years, trying to find an answer. And then as soon as I had my first awakening and I kind of learned about energy, and I'm like, oh, I can control this. I can choose who and what I let into my space. Then it all started to ease for me. So I actually find that really interesting.
Yeah, that is. And, when things like that happen with our body, it's almost like the last sign, the last like opportunity for us to really do something before it turns really, really bad. So it's interesting that your body held on to that fatigue for so long in the physical realm. And then it was like, no, like we're not dealing with this anymore. We're pushing you into an awakening.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Like we've had enough. Like something's got to give here.
Yeah.
But it's life changing, and I think that it is really important. And we think that we don't really have that free will, but we do. We have so much power when it comes to what we allow into this space. And I mean, I know you and I have had this conversation constantly, but there has been this lingering feeling like this spiritual community and this space doesn't really feel as safe as what it could be, in terms of not great intentions being sent our way, even down to the fact that if you're a spiritual practitioner in this space, you have people impersonating you every second day, trying to scam people. Like that is just an issue in itself, not to mention just the countless people that may be sending you not so nice energy. And this energy can be manifested through the most simplest emotions from other people. Even jealousy itself can be sent through as unintentionally, for one, and that manifests as evil eye. So there's so much happening behind the scenes that if we're not looking after that, it can really manifest into something not so nice.
Yeah, totally. I would really invite anybody strongly who wants, 2 feet in the spiritual community with their business to implement a weekly protection and cleansing practice, because that's it. You never know what's being sent your way. You never really will understand the effect it has on your life or on your business either. So it's important to take responsibility of the fact that, yeah, I can actually do something, even though I might not have a clear, direct message that it's actually happening. Because, we as human beings, we let things like jealousy and contentment and anger and frustration, we let that slip out into the world. We are human and it naturally happens. But there are people out there who are doing it with intention, which can cause a lot of harm as well. So just the fact that, we're constantly connecting more and more and more on social media, the less our energetic walls are up, the more energy we're allowing in, the more that we're going to need to cleanse our energy, protect our space, and protect our intention as well as like actually intentionally sending out really good energy into the space. And I think that's why I love the Akashic Records so much, because when I was starting to first work with them, the keepers said very, very clearly that, you're not just here to connect with the records to get guidance. You're actually here to funnel that frequency down into the earth because it's supporting the greater good of consciousness. And the more people that open portals like the Akashic Records or hold that higher frequency for longer periods of time, we're actually embodying that energy frequency here in this realm. And it's actually doing so much more than you could ever imagine. So doing things like that, keeping up with your practices, whether it is protection or cleansing, is also so important. And I think we can forget that.
Yeah, we can. I mean, even just funneling yourself, time of day, as you said, just to open your records or sit and do a quick meditation or a quick journaling session, that in itself is upping your frequency. And as you said, like what happens when you raise your frequency? You vibrate at a much higher rate. You're going to, it kind of like dissipates anything that is like, seeping into your space. And it happens so easy. It really does. The online space, it's wild. It is so wild because people have not just an energetic idea of your field, but they have a very visual, very, very clear visual viewpoint of your space. It's like this, everyone has their own little portals of access. And now people across the whole world can access it. And it's really scary. Even, what I went through last night for those for those who are,
by the way.
oh my goodness. So I'll just explain what happened. We had I had a one of those scam accounts impersonate me on Instagram, trying to set up, the exact same copycat account with all my posts they've stolen. And usually they block the person that they're impersonating, but they didn't block me. And right before I went to bed last night, they actually inboxed me with some really derogatory words that I will not repeat, but it was really disgusting. Just the words were disgusting. Yeah. And also sent through a very graphic photograph of what looked to be black magic and a lot of very bad energy, very graphic, gruesome, looked to be, cursing, that sort of stuff sent through to me. And I was so immediately, I felt unsafe. And I've never, it's been a very long time since I've felt that physical feeling in my stomach. And that feeling that I felt when I saw that photograph, for one, and then the words they sent afterwards trying to, I guess, intimidate me. It was kind of like, I think the last time I felt that sense of fear was when someone nearly crashed into me while I was driving and I almost had a bad accident. It was that sort of like physical feeling in my stomach that I felt immediately. And I had no idea that even these people that, are going around impersonating you, I thought they were there just for the money. I thought they were just trying to get money out of people. They're from, poorer countries that, people do struggle in, and it is really hard to make a living. And it's weird because to some degree, I almost understood why they were so desperate. And I was still kind of holding like a little bit of compassion, which I felt was the right thing to do in that sense, because you can't really fight, bad with bad, negative with negative, right? So I've kind of always held that sense of compassion and slight understanding of, you got to do what you got to do. Like, you might have your own kids at home you're trying to feed. If that's an easy access to make money and you're starving, like, yeah, okay. But it wasn't until last night that I realized that there is like a deeper meaning towards them coming for us. And, the people in the spiritual community in itself is, they're not just there to make money. They're there to really pull down the frequency, the vibration. They're not there to just make money. And it was just, I'm still shocked about it.
Yeah, totally. And I think it is really important for you to share this, not to, I don't know, bring fear into the space, but to give people a really good understanding that there are people out there who don't always wish well on you. And it is really important to take this so seriously, what we're talking about, but also to recognize that this is a much deeper call, not just to protect your space, to protect one another's. Like I was actually transcribing a previous episode from a couple of weeks ago, and there was a part that came up that was like, you were saying, we're all enrolled in this together. We're all colleagues in this community, and we have to start looking at protecting one another, because the energy we send out it's sent back to us tenfold. So it's really important that we're looking out for one another, and that we're recognizing that there's a much bigger play at hand here. And I've heard this since the minute I stepped into the spiritual community from a lot of different people in this space, people like Elizabeth April. If you're like familiar with what she does over on YouTube, she talks about this spiritual war that we're going through at the moment. I haven't connected with any of her content in maybe 8-9 months now, but when I was connecting with it, there was a lot of information around the fact that we need to continue to do this work because there are energies and frequencies at play that are trying to bring down this community. And when you told me that this happened to you, it kind of just reignited the realization that, I know it might seem weird, but like that, fuck, like we really meant to be doing this. And I know for you, it brought up feelings of feeling really unsafe. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that and feel that, and that it did bring you to just that level of unsafety. But for me, it gives me even more drive to continue to do this work and to share with people that you actually do have control of your life, and that we shouldn't let people like this continue to send out energy. That's harmful.
Yeah. Oh, you just hit the nail on the head with that. This is more than just, this goes way beyond stealing people's content.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. But it's almost like we all kind of are made to believe that this is what it's about. Like, oh, they're just stealing my content. It's not that. It goes so much deeper than that. But as you said, like, this isn't something to create fear or, that like wanting to back out of the situation.
Yeah.
I could have, but actually talking to you about it has made me feel empowered, because you came through with a really important, like, empowering directive from that. And this is like this at times, most of the time, it does feel like a spiritual war with people that are trying to bring down that frequency. And it goes way beyond what we can see on the surface. There's people not just out there impersonating people. There's people out there literally, putting bad energy and sending us bad intent constantly. But this is the driving factor of why we keep showing up. Like you said, it is why we keep showing up. And it should drive us to keep showing up even more and to keep radiating and keep, vibrating at that frequency, and just not just for us, but for our, the people around us as well. It's so important that we do that. And if one of us sort of backs out or like leads with fear, then it ends up being this big domino effect. And that's how we go under. And we've done that before, because that's exactly what happened last time we reached. It's so funny. This is all coming through because this is exactly what we went through during the last age that we were in. So we just came into the age of Aquarius. And at this point, 2,500 years ago, I think it was last time we were at this point in the wheel, fear won.
Yeah.
It won. And that was the demise of that current civilization that was back then. And we did give in, and I guess we didn't give in, but things were taken from us because we were subjected to fear, and we let it overcome us. And I say this, and I constantly repeat this whenever I can, and that is, we have incarnated here into this life at this exact moment in time to move through this, because we have had a life back in that time where we have maybe, we have these regressions where we're like, oh, we didn't overpower them with this love and this support. And there were still a lot of wounds in a community sense back then. And we are here to heal that. We're here to protect each other, and we're here to win this spiritual war with love and just joining together this time. And we're going to do it. Like, I know that it's so funny. It's such a deep knowing. And I know that you feel this too. And I know that whoever's listening to this feels this deep down, past that, whatever fear you might feel, or, the days that you wake up and you feel not great, you're looking out at what's happening in the world, and you're like,
Mhm.
Like, I know deep down at the end of the day, you know that we're going to get through this. And that's what's so beautiful about this point in time, is that no matter how overwhelming it gets, there's this deep inner knowing that we're gonna do it this time. We're actually gonna do it this time. And that's why we're all back here
Yeah.
right now to do it. But just getting back on track, it's just really important to have discernment moving through this space. And these little practices can make such a difference. These protective practices can just absolutely shift the trajectory of the energy in your space, in your business, on a personal level. You can protect your family, protect your loved ones. And this is something we should be doing all the time. And I find that it is our responsibility to do it for other people as well, because we need to look out and scan and see if we're feeling strong. Like, we should be looking out, seeing like, okay, who can we hold space for, bring them into this protection, because that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, that's that beautiful Aquarius energy coming up. It's like, yes, let's heal the collective. I love that. And I totally, totally agree. And you know what's beautiful about this time around is that we can talk about it. We can talk about it freely. We don't have to talk about it in alleyways at midnight. We can talk about it in the middle of the day on social media and actually empower one another to continue to do this work without worrying about who's listening. And I think that's a really exciting, I don't know, addition to this that we get to have this time round. There is so many more tools that we have in our tool belt now coming to this exact point, like you were saying, and it's really exciting. But the only way we win is by being aware of what's happening and by choosing consciously which direction we want to lead our energy and those who are in our circle as well. So yeah, I totally, totally agree. And I would love to see other people stepping up in this space and sharing their own protective practices. I know that's going to be a major focus of my kind of content at the moment. Like, let's just bring it back down. We are living with social media. So why not share and why not use it and help one another, educate each other? I think that's awesome that women and men now can educate one another on these practices. And I think that's exciting. You know, I think we should be excited about that. The other thing I wanted to say that was just coming through was that, you know, fighting with love and light isn't soft. And it doesn't have to mean that you forgive and let go. All it means is that you are not allowing somebody else's negative energy to impact the direction that you want to go. And I think that's really important because I know a lot of people here who have come from lifetimes as warriors who might have a lot of Aries energy might be like, well, I just want to like go full force with like all of these crazy like practices and I'm not letting anybody into my space. I'm locking it down and do what feels right to you. But at the same time, it's important for you to know that you can embody both love and compassion and yet hold protection and power, you know, in the same room together.
Oh, what did I hear the other day that just aligns so beautifully with that? I don't even know where I heard this, but I've overheard a conversation or a dialogue or something in the last 2 weeks, and it was surrounding the energy of, you know, if something is not so positive in your life or there is someone in your life that isn't so positive, it isn't like, as you said, it's not about love and light, but it is about not taking on that negative frequency. Because as long as you take on the fear, which is natural sometimes, but as long as you're working towards not taking on the fear that that thing or that person is sending or exuding in your space, the fear, the negativity, the lower vibration, it's so easy to carry around a part of that with you. And we do it without even realizing. And that can be as something as small as just like maybe stewing over something for a few days, like ruminating, but what we have to do is we have to acknowledge that, and even in doing that is carrying around that energy still. And energy is a really funny thing. It's pretty tricky to disattach if you're not willing to surrender.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like surrender is the key to that. So yeah, I just felt like I needed to share that, because it is really important to know that we do, even when we think we've released something, we can still be carrying it around in our backpack without even realizing, and wondering why we feel exhausted or tired or stagnant or just plain shitty. So
Yeah, you know what? That's really interesting you say that. And maybe this will bring a lot of like awareness to people who are still holding on to certain cords or attachments. Something that I was taught in both my life coaching certification and in some of the healing modalities that I've been trained in is that you, as the space holder, can do everything in your power to guide someone through a cord cutting or releasing, but if they are still attached to it, it will always stay. And something that I like to go through clients a lot with is, well, why would you keep this attached to you? Why would you keep this in your space? And sometimes it feels counterintuitive. Like, I asked myself this about money, like, why wouldn't I actually want money in my world? And because sometimes we hold these attachments to these beliefs or what we think could be possible, and it actually attracts that in. So for example, for a reason I wouldn't want money in my world is because what I was talking about last week, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. That means I have to be more educated, more knowledgeable. I have to be more present with it. But knowing this, it then gave me a lot of context to understand, well, is that actually true for me? And is that in line with who I really want to be? And the only reason I share this is because sometimes we can be, afraid of letting certain things go. And I think it's just important to be aware.
Yeah. I think too, we have a perception of what we feel like our leaning posts are, but really we don't lean on them at all. It's just that emotional attachment. And I know we're getting off track, but it's really important to know as well that you can still grieve things that like you release that aren't good for you. Like, that is okay. And just because you're grieving it doesn't mean that it belongs in your life or your space or your field.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest, hardest lessons. That's why a lot of the general population stays in toxic relationships and like just situations and stuff like that, because stability and a sense of comfort can manifest from anything, because when we're desperate, we cling to whatever we can.
Yeah.
Okay? We'll take anything.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know that even if you are ridding yourself or cutting cords or protecting yourself, or just heightening your standards of what you allow into your space and your field. So it might feel a bit scary at first, and it might feel a bit like, oh, this is weird. I'm not very comfortable with this. But just know that the more that you do it, the more you implement that protection of your space and implement your boundaries, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the more used to it you're going to feel.
Yeah, that's so true. That's such an important thing, to let your body and your mind just grieve, because we get so used to having the same four walls, and when we knock one out, we're like, oh my God, what is all this open space? Like, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to fill it? So of course, grieve and let yourself feel those emotions. And this isn't also to say like never feel fear or never feel like horrible, because that's just being ignorant. This is just to say, like, when you do feel any negative energy in your space or certain things arise, emotions arise, it's about choosing that, okay, I'm not going to let this define me. And I always notice when I'm unconsciously or subconsciously holding on to negative energies, like things like I'll lose my items all the time, or I'll spill a lot of my stuff, or I'll trip over, or like I've got all these bruises on my body because I just like knock into things. And sometimes we need to look further than just the mind or just our emotions to recognize that maybe there is some energy in here that isn't actually aligned for my highest good. How do you know when there's like negative energy around you?
I really love this. And I love the fact that we can, sorry, just prefacing this, I love the fact that we can speak about the practicality of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because I know that in this space, we're all like, oh, this is what it feels like. It might manifest as this. But like, speaking about this is so important because people just want the facts. And in saying that, quite similar. Another thing, I agree with everything you said also, and you'll probably agree with this, is that like my kids just go berserk.
Oh my God, yes.
Because they're so sensitive. So I know as soon as my kids start getting wild, I'm like, okay, it's time to do a cleanse. Another thing is that I find it really hard to share and create content, have conversations. I lose my train of thought constantly because there's this energy drawing off me, and it's almost like it's the thief of my creativity and my, what I want to give is just going, it's being, it's like a feed line off this energy that needs to be cut off. So that is a huge thing for me. I find I reach this halt in my momentum and my business, and I'm like, and then the first reaction I have is a human reaction. I'm like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with you this week?
Yeah.
Like this, you suck. And then I'm like, oh, let's do a cleanse. Let's just clear the space, clear my field. And then, the days following after that, I'll feel like the cogs are starting to turn again. Then I can show up, and I want to show up. And the stagnant energy is diffusing, and I'm feeling so much more exuberant in just being here in this space.
Yes, that's so true. I've noticed that with me as well. That's so true. And that's it. Like sometimes you won't notice it in your emotions, or you won't notice it in your feelings, but you'll notice it in the outside world, like things like technology mucking up, or if you're typically always on time to things and suddenly you're forgetting things as you're walking out the door, or you're like late to appointments or meetings. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this is just how it kind of trickles out into our environment, because our environment is a mirror of our inner world, and we start to see that really, really reflected deeply when we're holding that negative energy and we can see it around us. I think it is important to talk about this, because when you're new to protection and you're not really sure of why you would even bother protecting your energy, then it's important to be aware of how it can actually affect you in other ways. Because I know that when I first started to learn about it, I was like, oh, I don't really see that much of a difference. And like you said before, the more I started to do the practices, the more I noticed a change in my energy. But it did take time to really understand the shift.
Yeah, it does. And I think a lot of that too for women in particular comes down to having that witch wound, and how dare you protect your space, and kind of labeled as crazy people for like getting out the herbs and lighting candles and dropping the oil in, and we're labeled as crazy people because that was just not allowed. Like, how dare we protect our space? But it's so important. And once you start, you realize how much lighter your space feels afterwards, and how much it gives you space to, I don't know, create and vibrate at that frequency that you want to vibrate at in a way. I feel like as well, and I know you're feeling the same, and I've spoken to a lot of other beautiful women in this community recently too, who have just had this insane calling to start to uncover, other practices, not just lighting candles or like doing an energetic cleanse as such, but really doing like a practice when it comes to like mixing your herbs and doing like banishing spells and stuff like that. And I just find it so beautiful that we are finally all reconnecting to that side of us, because we've all done this before. And we're all burnt for it, but it's really beautiful to reclaim this. And I'm seeing it more and more in this space, and it just lights me up so much when I see it, because you can choose what feels good for you. And I feel like we need to chat about this, like this practicality of it, and the like the fact that it is accessible to everyone. Like, we're not here to, because I've actually had a few people ask me, they're like, oh, do you mind sharing where you get your herbs that you buy to do that cleanse, or is it okay if you tell me? I'm like, of course, girl, I'm not here to gatekeep herbs.
Yeah.
I'm here to share it. Like, I wouldn't be sharing it if I didn't, encourage people to go out and explore that side. And I'm having so much fun with it.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun. I totally agree. And I've seen, similar to you, a lot of people reconnecting with Mother Nature and actually like using the elements to help cleanse and protect their energy and, recalibrate them and re-energize them. And I love that we've gone through this cycle of like, stepping more out of Mother Nature. We've seen civilization do that. And now it feels like more people are just wanting to go and sit in the ocean or sit in the woods and sit in the sun. And it's really beautiful that we're seeing that reconnection. But, there's so much education out there, and you don't have to look to others to explore this. Exactly like you said, you've got this knowledge in your blood, you've got it in your bones, and explore and trust yourself. I think there's so much healing to be done around trusting your own practices. And this is something that I'm currently moving through at the moment, is trusting that my intuition is right. And she's going to lead me to the right herbs, to the right elements, to the right deities. Like, she knows what I need to work with. And I can trust her to do that. But it takes time to build that, I think, because we are coming from lifetimes of being burnt at the stake for our power and for our knowledge. And so, of course, we've come in questioning whether or not it's safe for us to continue. But the more we do it and the more we trust ourselves, I think the more we'll build that up. And the other thing I've really loved doing lately is connecting with my ancestors. And we've spoken about this. Like, I love like learning practices from them. And the other night I was asking for a practice before I went to sleep, and they actually showed me in dream time, like me smoking this herbal blend, and I did it, and it was so beautiful. And it was nothing and everything all in one, and sometimes you just need to trust where you're led.
Yeah. And I find a lot of the time we have these preconceived ideas of different practices, and we've formed this, I guess we've formed like a certain thought form around certain practices where we are like, oh, I'd never do that. Oh, I don't think I'll try that. But once we do reconnect with our ancestors, it is such a powerful tool. It's like unlocking the puzzle pieces that brought you to where you are today, and almost like finding that beautiful alchemical, I don't know, like recipe base of like what aligns for you in a way, because they are you, and I love that you were gifted that insight as to like what you were being drawn and what you're being kind of like ushered in, and like, okay, this is like, we entrust this knowledge to you. We think this is going to serve you, and they gifted that to you. And I find that's so beautiful. It's also a really beautiful thing as well about, having that access to the Akashic records and being able to peer into your past and your, previous lives, and meet your ancestors and find out more about that. Another practical thing in terms of learning about your ancestors is just to just get curious and ask your family about it. Where did you come from? Ask about grandparents, ask about great grandparents, because a lot of the time there's lots of stuff we don't know. I know we've had this conversation the other day about how you found out about one of your great grandparents and you finally reconnected with that energy, and it's just been beautiful, and hence why you have been gifted these practices and ushered in to incorporate those into your practices, like here and now. I think it's really powerful to do that. But important, exactly what you said before, it is about just leading with intuition and doing what feels right, not getting caught up in, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't go try that because there's, that's taboo, or, that's, unknown. Of course it is. There's so much to explore. There's so much to unlock, so much to try and incorporate and learn. And we're never going to learn every single facet of, who we are and what the hell we're doing in this one lifetime, but we can definitely work towards that and unlock the pieces that it's going to make our life so much easier, and learning these beautiful practices to protect our space is really important. Yeah. And I have a lot of people too ask, they're like, oh, is this the right thing to use? I'm like, there's no wrong or right. You use what feels good for you, because at the end of the day, yes, herbs, plants, all of that, like Mama Nature herself, she holds properties, she does hold energy, but what's more important than that is the intention that we place when using these things. So you don't have to do what the book says. You don't have to do what that other person is doing or what they say they do. And I always preface this in anything that I share. I'm like, I'm using this, but you use what you want to use. That is so important, because different things work differently for people. We're not a cut copy of everyone else. Energy is so intricately different to everyone else. And it's just so important to surrender to that and to trust our instinct. And what comes from that is, like, I've never felt more empowered than I do at the moment when it comes to my practices. I've gone from researching and Googling and reading books and following step by step. I'm like, okay, so add this to that, light this color candle. I've tossed it out the window recently, and I'm really trying to trust myself. And I have never felt more empowered and more protected when I do implement these things than I do right now.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful feeling to have. And that's why we have these practices, right? Like, we don't have these practices to keep us small or keep us enclosed or keep us away from our own wisdom and connection. We actually have them to reconnect us deeper to our own knowing. So I love that you're doing that. And just like with anything, it takes a little bit of time to gain some confidence and competence with what you're doing. So if you are starting out, research, get a little familiar with what's going on, but watch that point in time when you're being asked to adventure outside, and watch what you do as well, because that's a big learning moment too. And in saying that, I think it would be really beautiful if we shared a little bit of our favorite protection or cleansing, because I know that, or practices, I know that there are a few people in this community that don't even know where to even start. Yeah. So, with everything we've said, if it doesn't feel right to you, don't do it. If you know a different way, follow with that way. Continue to educate one another, continue to share information, but ultimately trust yourself and what you feel drawn to. But for me, my favorite cleansing is using Palo Santo at the moment. Love a smoke cleanse. Love using energy in music to help like dissipate any stuck or stagnant energy. It's a really great way of actually sending out waves, like sound waves, into the environment and breaking it up. But as well, like we've really just reconnected with, and when I say we, I mean me and my ancestors, reconnected with like using herbs and actually putting certain things into oil blends and using that as a protective oil. So I've been doing that for a while now. But every time I do a reading for a client or for myself, I put that oil on every part of my joints and I'll protect my body that way. But those are my favorite at the moment for protecting and cleansing. What are yours?
So beautiful. I've really been I've been reconnecting the last few months with herbs as well and using the elements, which is funny. Oh my God, I'm only just putting two and two together.
What?
Oh my goodness. I had wow. Sorry guys. We're having an epiphany on like live on the podcast right now.
I love this.
I've just had a puzzle piece click in. Okay. Let's start from the start. I was doing I'll get to my point in a minute, but I was doing a little because I felt really drawn probably how long ago was it? Maybe like 10 months ago or so. Really drawn to plant medicine, and I had reconnected with ancestors of South American descent, and I was being called forward to work with plant spirit Apacho and just utilizing Hape, which is like it's like a sacred like snuff that you use and you meditate and you just work with the plant spirit, and yeah, it's actually really beautiful. So I've been utilizing that and really working with that particular plant spirit for a little while now, and I kept on getting the same message come through because I thought that I was already doing it. And I thought what I thought I was doing is I was already working with the elements. So I was like, oh yeah, but I kept on getting this, like, it was almost like a really firm hand on my shoulder whenever I would sit with the medicine and they'd be like, work with the elements, keep working with the elements, work with the elements, work with the earth. I'm like, I'm bloody doing it. I am doing it. Just acknwledge it. But it's so funny because I was intuitively just led probably the last 3 months to explore like herbology and really get into using different herbs and plants in that way. And I've just had that puzzle piece click. I'm like, that's what they meant.
I love that. I love that.
So yeah, I've been exploring that and using I really love making like different bowls, like cleansing bowls at the moment. Like I use that a lot for like evil eye cleansing and stuff like that, just researching different herbs, but also, as we both said, like whatever I'm intuitively drawn to as well, mixing them in ritual with intention and setting intentions, doing like burning with that as well, incorporating burning intentions with that. Really loving that at the moment. It feels like a really fun experiment every time I do it.
Yes.
Like my inner child just feels so much joy, which even in a sense that adds to the protective nature of that practice too, because one of the highest vibrational emotions is joy, and I'm feeling that the whole way through doing these protection spells. So I've really been diving into that and loving it so much. Another thing that I love doing is, if you follow my Instagram, you'll know I love doing egg cleansing.
Oh, yeah. This one's home, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like when I do egg cleanses, it's like an immediate lifting of energy. It's like I can breathe suddenly, which is really great. If you're unfamiliar with what egg cleansing is, it's over on my Instagram, and I'm sure have been promising everyone I'd do a live on it, so I'll probably try and do that. But it involves cracking an egg into water and reading it and then disposing of it in a certain way. I love it. I love it so much. It's really cool too, because sometimes you will see initials and like imagery in there come up, and it's insane sometimes. Yeah. Another thing I love doing at the moment too is just, I'd really lost my connection with my, like, calling in my guides and my, my angels and my ancestors and stuff. And lately I've been getting this persistent like thing, like, use us. Even last night after I was sent that really graphic image from that fake account that was made, I immediately called in my angels. I was like, yeah, calling in my angels, Archangel Michael, and my other angels.
All of them. Call the whole team in.
Angels. Angels assemble. Just calling them all in and just saying, protect me, protect my family, protect my loved ones, form white light around me and my family, and protect us. Because they're not going to if you don't ask them to. And I've had this conversation too recently. I forget what the documentary is called, but a friend has told me about this documentary that this woman had made specifically on angels, and where she like deep dove into angels and stuff like that. And she was saying that, you have to summon these entities and these, protectors. You have to invite them in. They're not just going to do it. Like, you actually have a boundary, and you need to invite them into your boundary for them to be able to help you. So that was a really big wake-up call for me, because I'd always just expected it. And I'd kind of, I guess, in a way, taken that for granted. So I've really been trying to call them in mindfully lately. And I feel like it's helping. Like, I'm feeling pretty good considering what's been going on.
Yes, literally. I always think, like, what a crappy job, like, to be an angel sometimes and just see like the train about to crash and you're like, you want to like jump in and help, but they're not asking for help. Like, it's so interesting. But yeah, I agree. Calling in angels is so beautiful, and working with energies that can help you and support you and just hold you. I think there's so much support around you at the moment, even considering, what went on last night. And I think it's beautiful because it is a testament to the relationship you have built with your guides, with your ancestors, with your angels, and just with the people in your actual life as well. So it's important to nurture the relationships we have, because we're never going through these things alone, and can feel really suffocating sometimes, and it feels like we're all alone, but all you have to do is ask for help, and the universe will literally conspire to support you. Like, she wants to see you rise. She wants to see you continue to live your life and live a really beautiful, big, blessed life, but you have to believe that for yourself too.
Yeah, I agree. Intention is everything. If you don't feel it, it's not going to manifest. And it all comes down to emotion and how you're feeling with anything, whether it's positive, negative, anything. It's all comes down to intention and what you're truly feeling at the innermost core of your soul. But I feel like speaking about this today has just, I hope that this really lights a fire in everyone's bellies, because this really needs to be spoken about. And it's something that all I want is for people to explore this, and if it feels right for them, of course. I know that you and I will be definitely sharing more on our own pages about this. So if you're listening and you're very curious and wanting to try something, I'm sure that Tanita and me will be sharing some stuff, because it will be pretty, like, we're going to be focusing on this just with everything happening at the moment. When it comes to protection. So I'm sure that there will be lots to learn on both of our pages. And as well, I just want to say, like, you can always protect your, the people around you as well. I always light a candle for people constantly. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to light a candle for this person. I'm going to light a protected candle for this person. And I do have friends, on here in this space too, and that do reach out sometimes, and they're like, hey, I'm feeling really heavy today. Like, can you just call in some extra protection for me? And I'm like, sure, I would love to do that. Like, let's do it. And then obviously it's just reciprocated down the line. Like, we're here to do this together. So I think that's really important to be a beautiful finishing note too, to just remind, those who are listening that we are all here to do this together, and we can all hold space for each other, and you don't need to be anyone special to protect with your energy and to call in positive energy and protective energy. You don't need to be a wizard. You don't need to be anything. All you need to do is hold an intention in your mind, and you are a space holder, and you can hold that for yourself and others. And if we all start to do this and become more conscious of this, and just hold a little bit more discernment when it comes to this space, and yes, people don't have the best intentions, but we're here to move past it and to rise above it. So if you feel like someone needs a hand, help them, light a candle for them, ask them if they need assistance or would like help in protecting their space. And if you feel like you're overwhelmed and you just don't have the capacity, reach out. And there are so many, like, it goes beyond Sunita and I, like, there are so many beautiful spiritual practitioners too that offer these services, that will, that do energetic healing and cleansing. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to hold space and spread those good vibes. So
yes. Oh, what a beautiful note to finish on. I think that's really beautiful. And I think we're going to do something on Instagram over the next couple of weeks where we just send out some beautiful cleansing and protection energy to those who want to accept it. So continue to look out for us jumping on live. We might even do it on the DH podcast, just to continue to spread that energy throughout all of our multiple channels. But we hope that this has, ignited something within you, that it's reminded you that you are responsible and in control of your energy. And it's okay to, feel negative emotions, but don't let that become you, and really start to drive this energy towards what you want to see more of in the world. I think that's important for all of us. But I love you guys so much. I'm so grateful for this space. Truly, every week I'm like, I just love that we get to talk about what needs to be talked about and spread information. I think on the Instagram post, I'd love us to continue to share different protection and energy practices. So when you see this episode released, go over to Instagram, find this podcast episode, and drop some information for your fellow brothers and sisters, and let's just support one another. Like, let's change that narrative. Let's make this space safe for another. I think that's important.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna go light a candle for everyone.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Beautiful. All right, everybody, sending you guys so much love. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram over at the Divinely Human Podcast. If you can, we'd love to hear some feedback about this episode and how you're loving the podcast. You can go and do that over on Anchor or on Spotify. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.